All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Guam Congress Building in Hagatna, and thank you for being here. My name is Senator Dwayne T.D. Nicolas. I'm the Committee Chairman on Emergency Response, Border Safety, Military, and Veterans Affairs, and the Mayor's Council of Guam. This public hearing is now called to order. Today is September 19th. I've always wanted to do that, by the way. Today is Tuesday, September 19, 2023, and the time is 1:59. In compliance with the open government law, notice for this public hearing were published in the Guam Daily Post and on the Government of Guam Public Notice portal on Friday, September 15, 2023, and on Wednesday, September 13, 2023, and notices were also by email to all senators and all main media broadcast outlets. And this hearing is being live streamed on the Guam Legislature's YouTube channel. I'd like to acknowledge my dear colleagues, Senator Jesse Lujan, Senator Amanda Shelton, and Senator Roy Kinata. Thank you all for being here. Today we'll be hearing testimony on two bills, which are Bill 81-37 LS, sponsored by myself, Dwayne T.D. Nicolas, Tello T. Taidagui, Thomas J. Fisher, Jesse A. Lujan, William A. Parkinson, Roy A. B. Kinata, Joanne Brown, Chris Barnett, Christopher M. Duenas, Tina Rose Muñoz Barnes, an act to amend subsection 40111 of Article 1, Chapter 40, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to authorizing the Mayor's Council of Guam to select the time and date of their oath taking. And Bill number 41-37 Core, sponsor Chris Barnett, an act to add a new subsection 40145 to Article 1, Chapter 40, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring the availability of automated external defibrillators in all senior centers and recreational facilities operated by village mayoral offices by June 30, 2024. Individuals testifying today, I ask all to please state your name for the record and be respectful and courteous to each other. Those out of order will be removed from the public hearing room. All right, with that, let's get started. Mayor Hoffman, I see you're here. Come on up, sir, and testify. Thank you. But don't worry, we trust you. Thank you, sir, for being here. Go ahead and state your name and you can begin.
Hafaday, good afternoon. I'm Robert Hoffman. I'm the mayor of Sinahanya. I'm also the vice president of the Mayor's Council of Guam. Can I begin?
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. One moment, and I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Senator Barnett. Thank you, sir. Consigi, senor.
Thank you. Dear Chairman Nicolas and members of the committee, buenas and hafaday. We are riding in full support of Bill 81-37. As the chair for the past 4 inaugural ceremonies for the Mayor's Council of Guam, it has always been an issue because of that first Monday is full of ceremonies which marks the new terms of office for the Guam Legislature, the Consolidated Commission on Utilities, the Public Auditor, and the Guam Education Policy Board. We cannot attend theirs, nor yours, and they cannot attend ours. In addition to having the event midday on Monday, it makes it difficult for friends, families, and supporters who are working to take leave and attend the ceremony. Currently at the midday, the temperature is often too high and the sun is at its peak. By changing the date and time, we can opt for a more affordable outdoor natural setting where it is most comfortable. Security, protocol, and traffic control would also be easier since it's not on a business work day and work hours where roads would be closed. In keeping with tradition, we would have the inaugural Mass on a Sunday, then the ceremony later in the afternoon with the optional fiesta potluck dinner to follow. We'd also probably like to propose the term of office dates and duties and responsibilities start on Monday, January at 12 midnight. That way the office can function and respond reasonably in any matter before the workday begins at 8 a.m. in case there's an emergency. You saw that with then Governor Camacho. And I think the governors all swear in at midnight, even though their ceremonies later on. It just makes it easier for all of us on this end. It is our hope that the 37th Guam Legislature will allow for the passage of this bill. We thank you, Institutus Masi, and thank you for always working to improve the lives of our residents. Sincerely, myself and the Vice Mayor for Senahania, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Council because they're the ones who helped also ask that we push this bill in our Legislative Committee. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mayor Hoffman. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the presence of Senator Tello Taidegree. All right, at this time, we'll go ahead and take some questions from our panel. We'll start over here with my right. Senator Roy Kanata, sir.
I have no questions for Mr. Hoffman. Congratulations. You guys are going to have your own time, whatever time you want it to be. So I don't think we have any real issues regarding this. And I do hear you that the governor is sworn in at midnight usually, and then they have an official, you know, poo-poo party and that kind of stuff. I'm not too sure, Mr. Chair, is Mr. Sablan going to testify in this or no? Okay. Man, that's good that you guys yield to each other. Other than that, Mr. Chair,
Thank you, Senator Kanata. Senator Shelton, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mayor, for your testimony today. I have no issues with the bill. I think it's something that we can do to accommodate each other and, you know, have courtesy for one another and allow us to celebrate all of our inaugurations together on that day. So I look forward to the next one. So just Masi, Mr. Chair, for sponsoring the bill. I look forward to voting yes.
Thank you, Madam. Senator Lujan, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, am full support of the bill, and I do understand exactly what Mayor Hoffman's talking about in regards to starting the term of office and duties, responsibilities at midnight. Actually, back in the 27th Guam Legislature, that's when also Governor Camacho was sworn in, and, you know, of course, at midnight, and that we had that devastating storm. And even the legislature, we could not be sworn in at the legislature at Hessler. We had to be sworn in at the Supreme Court. So, and I don't think any one of us was able to have a shower. We just put on. So I understand the emergencies, and they do happen. We hope and pray it never happens again. But in that particular time, yeah, those were the conditions that we had to work with, and we understand. And, you know, let's do it now, and you know, hope and pray it never happens, and never have to have those times utilized. But anyway, I'm in full support, and I'm a co-sponsor of the bill as well. So thank you very much for your testimony today.
Thank you, sir. Senator Barnett, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a co-sponsor of the bill, obviously stand in full support of it. And I don't know, maybe we could piggyback our inaugurations, because these mayors, they know how to organize a pretty solid event. Take some of the stress off of us, Mayor. But Mayor Hoffman, thank you again for your testimony.
Thank you, sir. Senator Tello Taidegree, please. Madam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for allowing me to be your first co-sponsor of this legislation. I just wish that all the bills that came from us was this easy. You know, it's really refreshing to have something that we can do for the Mayor's Council, and all the hard work that you do for this community as well. I'd like to thank, you know, the Director Sablan for always taking my calls too as well, and answering any questions we have. So greatly appreciate your hard work to Mayor Hoffman. And this should be a no-brainer, go through real quickly, and we'll have a nice inauguration next term. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. This is the best public hearing in the whole wide world.
I think the only one who's not going to support this is the dry cleaners, because we can wear the suit on Sunday and Monday. Now only one day, and we're good. So, but Senator Barnett, I mean, I don't mind, because the venues are easier. I feel bad for you guys because you're limited on your guests on your galley when you have your inaugurations. So if you're set by law to have it in this building, but if it's somewhere else, that's something we can co-share, and even do the CCU, so then it's just one after the other, that we're all going to attend the same things anyway. It's almost like seeing the same people, the Chief Justice, the Governor, senators. It's just going to repeat, but I'm open to the idea of just collaborating, and we can save money that way too. I mean, our last inauguration really didn't cost us much because we got rid of the suits. We said island wear, we did it outside, and it was pretty quick, and we enjoyed it. So yeah, I thank you.
I support anything getting rid of the suits of mayor, because I don't know what happened ever since I got sworn in, my suit is shrinking.
Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everything that you do. I want to send my sincerest thanks for all the mayors and all that they do for the island. You guys are just like Customs, the first line of defense, and I applaud you and all your work, especially how the timeliness and the response and all the efforts through the typhoon. You have my support, and I'm pretty sure there should be no problems. Thank you again, sir, and we'll go ahead and conclude this portion of the public hearing. Thank you, sir. All right, now we'll hear a testimony for Bill number 441-37, an act to add a new subsection 40145 to Article 1, Chapter 40, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring the availability of automated external defibrillators in all senior centers and recreational facilities operated by village mayoral offices by June 30, 2024. Sir, go ahead and proceed and state your name for the record. Thanks for being here.
Bunitina Talawan and Zeus, thank you all, my dear senators and Hilo for attending today. It makes us feel good that when it comes to bills for the Mayor's Council of Guam, we get quite a few senators that come for the public hearing. But this bill 4137, we appreciate the introduction of it by, of course, Senator Barnett. We are in support of the bill. I just have a few comments on it. We do have defibrillators actually in our senior centers. Ever since we took over the operations of the centers in 2012, it is one of the requirements is that we have those in our centers. Thankfully, we have never been in a position to make use of it since 2012. But as the adage goes, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. My other comments on this for the AEDs is that it really requires a certified person to operate this. As you know, in our senior centers, we only have at the most 2 staff, either a rec leader and an assistant rec leader. And they would have to be trained in this. They already are, because we do have the fire department that comes every once in a while to ensure that our defibrillators are working. But this is not just a simple equipment that you put on the wall. It's something that has to be maintained. It's something that people have to know how to operate. We need to have a private company, and if no private company, we need the Guam Fire Department to come in and make sure and certify that it is still a viable working machine, much like the fire extinguishers. You don't just put them on the wall and wait for a fire. You have to make sure that at least every month you look at the gauge and make sure that you still have whatever is in there to oust the fire. The same thing for this equipment. And so while we welcome the bill to make this happen, it also states that we should have it in our recreational facilities. So in that sense, I just want to clarify what is a recreational facility, because we have numerous recreational facilities throughout the island that are under the jurisdiction of the Mayor's Council of Guam. Now, we may have to whittle this down and say it's to the gyms, it's to the community centers that operate recreational programs, because we couldn't put it out in a baseball field or in a softball field or a basketball court, right? And that's also a recreational facility. So we would just have to clarify that. Now, obviously, the time for us to submit the budget for purchasing this, as is proposed in the bill, has already passed. But even having said that, the senior centers are 100% federally funded by the Department of Public Health and Social Services. So I think it makes better sense to have public health be the entity to get the amounts needed for these defibrillators and include it in their budget that they would send or grant to us as operators of the senior centers. Because once those senior centers are no longer operated by the Mayor's Council of Guam, and someone takes over either the same building or they go to another entity of their own, these defibrillators actually belong in the inventory of the Department of Public Health and Social Services. So it would go with them. So it makes better sense to have the Department of Public Health include this in their Older Americans Act budget request to include the continued use of an up-to-date defibrillators, because, you know, there's, since 2012, we had the same defibrillator, so I'm sure there's newer models, newer technology. So if they would put that in, I think it would make better sense than for us to be the ones to purchase it. For the ones for the recreational facilities, once you clarify it, then yes, we can be the ones to include that in our budget to purchase those. But like, I just need a clarification as to which recreational facilities we are talking about. And then the maintenance of these defibrillators is also an added cost, because like I said, either we contract a private company to come in monthly and test it and take care of it, or we get an MOU with the Guam Fire Department that they would do this on a monthly basis. But the proposal, we need it, even if we don't need it. And of course, like I said, it's good to have it. And it's good to have our people trained, at least some people trained in the MCOG in the use of these defibrillators. Knock on wood, nobody would ever have to use it, but to the good thinking of Senator Barnett, thinking ahead, it's good that it's there, and it should be there. Not just for our Manamco, whoever comes in and uses the facility. And I don't know whether Mayor Hoffman wants to, Mayor Hoffman, our Vice Chair, wants to add on to that. I know he has a defibrillator in his center.
I actually do. So as a Child Care Development Fund recipient, we actually were able to get some. So I actually have some in our theater. We have some you've seen them in our recreation rooms as well. And we maintain it there. It's part of our agreements with doing that, being a facility. So a lot of the mayors, I think 18 of us are all recipients of the same fund, which can allow for those purchases, or even sometimes they issue it to you. We were issued the defibrillators. We had to buy the cabinets for it and the signs. But also as part of being a CCDF fund recipient, which all the mayors are, we're also required to have Red Cross train or be life-saving skills. So that's kind of the counterpoint of this. So at any given time, I think several of our staff are already trained for life-saving skills, and they're trained how to use that as well. So it kind of works hand in hand as long as there's a mayor's office employee. We've had employees, all of us have had employees where if they're out in the sun all the time, they start to feel faint. Our employees know what to do, have taken those action. Unfortunately, we've also lost employees in the Mayor's Council the last 18 years that I was there from heat stroke and other things. So this is the correct direction of this. Public Health saw fit to have us do it using the child care development money. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of this. So location-wise, it's spread throughout, but they're accessible during occupation hours of where the facilities are being used. And so I agree, the maintenance of it is the interesting part, because the newfangled ones require an online registration and update, and it sends you links on it, and then it tells you your battery life and all these things, because I think the most expensive part of that was the cabinet that it's stored in, because it's those breakable glass, has an alarm, and you're required to have the sign almost to meet the hospital standard of what it is. But being a facility that has multiple activities, our after-school program, our child care programs, it's a great requirement, and I think parents feel safe knowing that it's there and that we're trained, and then at the same time as we trying to work on getting access to EpiPens and stuff like that for anaphylactic shock, because not a lot of people know what their allergies are. We're blessed to have a fire department up the road, but I can see where other villages would be at risk for that same thing, to say, what do they do? And these things, it's not having, because you're required a prescription for EpiPens, but for some of those areas, like I said, most local residents don't know what their allergies are until it becomes either too late. And so that's kind of our next step in this kind of progression of getting healthcare in the villages on that end. But thank you, Senator, for that.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, sir. My apologies. I should have had the author of the bill open on the and give an opening statement. I'm sorry, Senator Barnett, sir, you please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No problem. I definitely appreciate the the feedback, and if I could, so you asked us to clarify recreational facilities. Can you instead, excuse me, instead tell me what do you think is the most feasible place to put these devices?
Well, for one, the gyms, and then, of course, community centers that are used for other programs. Facilities that have actually a structure on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So softball field doesn't make sense.
Yeah, parks, like parks that are out of our, that are in our jurisdiction but away. For example, I would give Hoggett, like Nimitz Park, because they would get vandalized and stolen in an instant. So wherever there's personnel who are trained to use that, that's kind of would be the access part of that.
Okay. So I think that Senator Kanata also had proffered another bill that would require AEDs to be placed in offices government-wide. So I think he and I, and then in communication with the Mayor's Council as well, maybe I can call you guys and get just a better understanding of the, so I guess, for example, the funding availability. So is it your, are you basically saying that because of this child care grant, all of the mayor's offices can purchase the AEDs with these grant monies?
Yes, and it's part of the requirement of operating, becoming a licensed or a certified child care facility. It's part of the requirement. It is a reimbursable. So even if the mayor's got the money already, if they purchase it and they pay for the training as well, for the life-saving training, it's a reimbursable from the grant. So it's paid by the block grant. So anytime that happens, we do that, we show the certifications and we send the billing up, they pay it right back. So it's no loss to the actual mayor. It's not making their grant any less, but you're basically fronting the cost first. And then at the times that we've seen, what we were fortunate is public health already had it. So they had it delivered, knock on the door, here you go, install these. And we're like, okay, sure. So we didn't need to go ahead and purchase it in advance. They did it for us. We just purchased the cabinets. We got reimbursed for the cabinets.
Thank you. I appreciate your input and your support of the measure, and I'll be in touch just to make sure that we're casting the wide net, maybe not casting it too wide, because it sounds like the grant availability, and I want to make sure there's no conflicting, anything conflicting with that and any legislation that we proffer. But again, always look forward to working with the Mayor's Council, and I appreciate your testimony on this measure. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. We'll just go ahead and start with Senator Kanata, sir. You have any questions or comments?
No questions, but I definitely want to thank you guys for coming out today. Definitely as a co-sponsor for this measure, I also have a companion legislation similar to this legislation that will definitely reach out to you guys to collaborate more on the definitions of what facilities need them more specifically. We don't want to just put them out at the baseball field with no one there, right? Then it's going to get either taken or massed. I don't even know what they're going to mass out of it, but that's the truth, right? It's unfortunately. Yeah. So with that being said, I have nothing further, Senator. I'm in full support of this, and we look forward to finding more information out of this public hearing.
Thank you, sir. Senator Shelton, madam, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Mayor's Council for the testimony today. I'm also in support of this measure. This was something that was discussed a couple months back when we were addressing the last AED bill for schools and how this should be included for senior centers. And so I'm appreciative knowing that we do have these in our centers already, and if there is that clarification needed, to understand who is responsible for these machines, public health. I think that's something that we can address here in the bill, Mr. Chair, in committee before we get on the floor. And so I appreciate that feedback.
Thank you, madam. Senator Lujan, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm again, full support of the bill as well with the, again, with the recommended changes. But let me ask you this, because you guys have basketball courts as well, but some of them are indoors, some of them are kind of semi-indoor, outdoor. And those courts are used for multi-purpose as well. I mean, not just for basketball. Are those required? I mean, do you currently have them on your basketball courts? Well, would that be a facility? Will that be one of the entities that you would recommend that these defibrillators be installed at?
Well, the indoor ones, or the semi-indoor ones that we have, like Sinañas, are actually adjacent and attached right to community center, so
Okay.
it wouldn't be a far distance, but we don't have anyone that's a standalone outside.
Okay.
So, Senator, the gymnasiums, which the mayors operate, so you have basketball courts and you have gymnasiums that are basketball courts. That's kind of the difference. Those gymnasiums have recreation leaders, which are to be trained in that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So you have that. So not everywhere has it, but I think how many gymnasiums? Seven gymnasiums that would qualify for this, and then have the personnel there anyways.
Okay, yeah. Okay, this question too is not relating to any bill, but where are you guys at in regards to the senior citizens and I guess the meals and all that? I mean, I think that was an issue, right? Before, or the senior centers, yeah, operations, yeah, there we go. Where are we at with that? I mean,
Well, you know, during COVID, of course, the centers
Yeah,
weren't open, but
yeah.
we were providing the services needed, giving them the meals and whatever, transporting them to their appointments. Of course, after the typhoon, Mawar, we shut down again because no power, no water. But except for the Tamuning Senior Center, all the 11 other centers are back operational 100%.
I know, I think the
Yeah.
Mooning has air conditioning problem, I think, right?
Yes.
That needs to be
yes.
rectified?
And then in terms of the contract, we've
Yeah.
agreed to do it one more year.
Okay,
So we did put in some terms, and they agreed to our terms in terms of sending the payments ahead, or not ahead, but funding us at a full level versus, 7 times out of the year, which
Yeah, yeah.
hurt our personnel, which hurt our ability to actually make improvements. So we were able to agree and negotiate that. So that component, I think, is set. It's just the adult daycare and the emergency receiving home that they're trying to bid out.
the adult daycare, how many do you have? How many on the island?
There's 3 adult
3 of them, right?
daycares. There's
A couple down south, right?
Jigo, Machechi, and in Elahan.
And Elahan, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, the emergency home, the dementia
yeah.
home is at Worcester Road in Jigo,
yeah.
yes. So those 2, the adult daycare and the emergency home, because the process of procuring another vendor is taking longer than expected, we are being asked to extend the adult daycare contract with public health for at least up to December of this year, and the emergency home at least another 6 months, because that one, they haven't even put the scope of work together.
Yeah.
And so, we're not going to let our seniors or our needy people out on the road, of course, or even though it's making it difficult for us, we will just step up to the plate and do it. The senior center senior center operations, you're just waiting for my signature on the page to get it going so that it can go to the AG and to the governor for her signature, but it's a $1.15 million grant that's for FY24, and they've promised us that the whole amount will be given to us upfront before we even start the fiscal year, which in previous fiscal years was very difficult for us because it was all piecemeal. Sometimes we have 7, 8 different work requests in a year just to keep the program going, and it eats into our own budget because we have to fund it to pay the people, the contractors, the employees, the supplies. But, in the end, it all works out because we know that we're going to get the money anyway. The only thing is the timeliness of that money. So this year, our president insisted that if we're going to do this again, give us the money up front so at least we can plan ahead.
Yeah.
Instead of planning only for 1 month and then we're going to wonder whether or not we're going to have money to pay the trash removal or the aircon maintenance or things like that.
Or our payless payday, which we've tried to avoid,
You've had
which
it,
we don't
yeah,
want to have.
Yeah.
So we're working out fine with them, and we will continue to do so as long as we are needed to do it.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple questions myself. What is the cost for one of those things, defibrillators?
We have never purchased one, so I can't give you the cost of it. Those came from the previous vendor, which at that time was GARP-SPIMA, and Public Health would have that cost of how much. I'm sure they're much more costly now than they were 11, 12 years ago. Just as Mayor Hoffman was speaking with you, he was telling you just the housing for that AED is like $600-700. Imagine the equipment itself.
And that's the cheap side. It actually goes up even more if the more alarms and security features you have. But, they are expensive, Senator, because they're a life-saving equipment. It's not something you can just get off the shelf. And the issue that we saw was the availability on the island to have it, and the second part is shipping. So it's not something you can just go in and order from some place. Most medical supply places do special orders for it because the shipping on the battery part of it, they don't ship lithium batteries over on regular U.S. post mail and stuff like that, so it'd have to come by boat and all these other things. But I want to say in total, I'm glad we didn't have to buy it up front, but I'm Googling it now, and it's $2,500 per unit, and that's not including the casing.
housing,
so
right.
the housing, the alarm for that and stuff like that, it can run you probably up to $3-4 grand.
Right. And your maintenance requirements
Yes.
for the units?
Yes.
What is the cost, and how often do you have to maintain them?
We don't have a private contract for that. We just use the services of the Guam Fire Department.
Yes, sir.
And we call them out at least to come out and check it if they have the time and the opportunity on a monthly basis to do it, just as we do for our fire extinguishers.
Thank you, sir. And shelf life for the unit?
Like Angel said, we haven't been able to not how to use it in the senior center, and for the ones that we have, as long as the light's green on the machine, it doesn't say anything. Yeah, so I would believe it would last pretty long if not used, and you can get several uses out of it, because the one that we have actually talks to you. It tells you what to do. So it's not just readily. It walks you through. It's like place pads on take off the shirt, place pads on the chest area, and it shows you on the video there like where it is. So it's pretty high tech in that sense, but I think when you open it, you can actually run a test and do a test where you're not actually making it active, the paddles, and you can go through it. So, and the training that they do, they actually let you do everything, and it gets to a certain point that, kind of remove this little thing and, turn to an active piece. But it's a very useful tool, and I think, like I said, we have 82 kids in our summer camp. Parents notice that we have it, and they're like, okay, should anything happen? Because kids are now getting cardiac arrest too from rigorous sports and everything else, so it does happen.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know because I might want to buy one. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take questions and comments from Senator Tydegui, please. Madam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure everyone here understands the real importance of having these life-saving devices for all the areas, and I really appreciate the author of moving forward because he's brought this up on several occasions before, so I'm glad he's moving through with it. My only concern right now, of course, is cost, right? And my greatest concern is supplanting. So like some other areas where we have codified it, into law that this is required, it may avoid us from getting any federal funding because it's been codified. For example, the feminine hygiene products, right? The school now it's codified, now they're going to have a difficult time trying to fund that when it could be funded federally. So, Mayor Hoffman, you mentioned the grants. What was the name of the grants that you talked about earlier that was helping you supply these?
Child Care Facility, Child Care Development Fund. And it's administered by the Bureau of Families, Children and Families at Public Health.
Public Health, right?
Yes.
Okay. And is there a specific amount that's dedicated for those defibrillators, or you made that choice on how much money was going to be spent?
We didn't spend it because they gave it to us, but it's on, so for any government-run facility, like for the camps that all the mayors run or the sports, it's part of the requirements on a checklist of what you're supposed to have. Like, you're supposed to be trained. We're supposed to have institutional health certificates. So it just kind of ticks down the box and says you should have this. And then from there, it doesn't set an amount, but the grant they give us is more than enough to cover it. And again, it's a reimbursable thing, so it's just, we kind of show proof, show the receipts, show that we bought it, and then, most people did local calls. We called around trying to find the cabinet for almost 2 weeks, and nobody had it. It was special order, so I went through eBay, and I had to FedEx it in. Just FedExing it in cost me almost $400 just for the shipping. But I knew it got here because we wanted to meet that standard for certification and passing. Almost like a school inspection, similar way. Public Health's coming to inspect our facility, we need to have it active and ready.
Are you familiar with any other government agencies that have these defibrillators, or whether autonomous or, online?
I've seen them at public health and just the hospital and behavioral health. I've seen them on the walls.
Airport?
I don't think I've ever seen it at the airport.
You've never seen, I think I've seen them at the airport. So maybe there's some, might be ways to, because of the cost, bring them in through another autonomous agency to help you out with it. But you're right about public health being able to supply this. Now, I'm curious to find out if public health has the ability to actually seek grants that would cover the cost of these defibrillators. So that's one area I'd hope that the author of the legislation, reaches out to public health. If there's availability through federal funding, maybe through the fire department as well. If there's federal funding for the fire department, they can go after for defibrillators because they're the ones basically know how to really utilize these defibrillators. I think the legislation should also incorporate that the maintenance of these are done by fire, Department of Fire, just like how they do with inspections, because it's not codified into law on defibrillators. So I think the legislation should incorporate that fire department shall do an inspection. Whether I think it's every 6 months or depending on the lifespan, I think there's like an expiration date on that, but I guess whatever common practice there is for defibrillators. But my concern really is not availing ourselves of federal funding if we should turn this into law, and that's something I'm really concerned about. I mean, it's just almost like the EpiPens that you're bringing up. This is a way we can get federal funding through there. So other than that, those are some of my concerns, and the cost is quite high. So let's ensure that this bill goes further than just a bill, but actually becomes a reality. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam. I guess we'll just conclude, and we'll have the author make some final statements. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank my colleagues for their input as well as their concerns that I'm very positive we'll all work together to address. Obviously, last thing we want to do is to inadvertently pass a law that is going to jeopardize availability of any federal funding. It's my understanding that there's a whole bunch of funding available for the purchase of these devices. So we'll get back to the drawing board and make sure that along with the chair of this committee that we push out a bill that everyone can get behind and support. So again, thank you, Mayor. And also, Executive Director, definitely appreciate your support on this measure and your input as well. Si Jus Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. I just want to mention that I applaud the author for this. He and I visited a lot of senior centers and played bingo and did a lot of fun stuff. And I guess this is our commitment and his commitment to taking care of our manamcos. And they're very important to us and to the rest of the public that have to visit these facilities. And I'd like to applaud the author, and I'd like to thank my dear colleagues who joined us today. Is there any further questions or any further statements you like, sir?
Yeah, these AEDs are life-saving equipment, but I just want to put on the record that you and all of you that are up here are life-saving people. Thank you for supporting us always. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That's very wonderful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And with that,
I do just, while I have you, and this is something that we kind of been in the mayor's side of it, this is separate outside of this, but if this is something we can work on and just to empower the mayor to declare parks and facilities and recreate under our purview as alcohol-free zones instead of kind of doing, because right now only Parks and Recs has that authority, and we're the ones having to deal with the people in the parks who are a little bit more, and every time we call the police, it's not really a zone. We can't enforce any kind of ordinance because there's no real law on this. So if allowing us, the mayors, to declare our certain beaches, certain parks, and some areas we can allow for those celebrations, those christenings and fandangos, but some other areas where we have issues like our basketball court, I can't declare it an alcohol-free zone, but it's my basketball court, and I don't want kids playing where people are drinking and everything. So if this is something we could either work together on bipartisan-wise, I think it helps all of us in pursuit of that kind of healthier Guam, at the same time a safer Guam.
thank you, Mayor Hoffman. Yes, we got our team back there, and they're going to take this into consideration, work something up for you. With that, I would like to remind the public to take care of one another and take care of yourselves. If there is no one else to testify on the bills, I'd like to thank the panel, my dear colleagues. We will also continue to receive testimony for both bills, and if you want to submit testimony, kindly submit them to the mailroom at the Guam Legislature or through email at Senator Nicolas at guamlegislature.org. Thank you to everyone for attending this hearing on Bill 81-37 and Bill 41-37. And with that, this bill has been heard and the committee is now adjourned. Si todos masi, the time is now
Chris,
14:39.
do a gavel grab.
Thank you.